Howdy! Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday. You know what day it is. That's right. That's our content day. But anyhow. Oh, why the cowboy hat? Well, I'm glad you asked. Last weekend was the annual Western Swing Out event in Tehachapi, California. And I just so happen to know the promoter and a lot of people involved with that particular event. And it's been going on for several years now. And I should do a video about it next year. I should bring the camera and shoot it, of course with the, consent of those who put it on. But anyways, I should do an inside look. I should do an expose, if you will, about that event, because it's a lot of fun, and it's a very good time. And that's not just saying it's a good time, but it's put on by good people with the right intent, and it's done a lot of positive things for the small city of Tehachapi, California, and for the veterans there. So there's a lot of positivity that surrounds that event, and it's almost tangible. You can feel it, and everyone gets along from all different backgrounds, and it's great. It's great. We have sometimes a poor perspective or idea what Western culture is of, say, the 40s and 50s, but it's not quite what you think all the time. It's not, a bunch of John Waynes and, six shooters and everything as we've seen on TV and film. But yeah, the culture of the Western swing vibe is really interesting, and it's kind of beautiful if you really take a right look at it. But anyways, shout out to my good friends Christina Coffey, founder and promoter of the Western Swing Out event, and my friend Charlotte, who put on the fashion show and put her whole self into that event as well. And I volunteered. I had a great time volunteering and some of my time to the Swing Out and helping run the show and work at the registration table and everything. And I saw a lot of good people, a lot of people I've known for a long time, and it was great. Had a lot of fun dances, and no complaints. Absolutely recommend it for those who like Western swing music from the 40s and 50s, even further back into the 20s and 30s. But anyways, that being said, we're going to be sharing some lanterns. So we have some big guys. Give me a second here. Where are they? Here they are. They're just chilling out on the sidelines here. So this is a recent find. Bought it from another collector. Still collecting trash. My gosh. Today is Thursday, but usually our trash pickup is Wednesday, and because of Memorial Day weekend, it was postponed. Anyhow, here it is. SGNL number 1B Royal. That's right. This is a big lantern, and let's see, it says SGNL Syracuse. It says Royal 1B there. I found the proper globe. You see that? Yeah. I mean, even this globe could be worth almost as much as the frame. But anyways, this is a special piece. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not uncommon to find an 1890s square tube lantern made either by Dietz or SGNL, either a square lift or a side lift or a Victor. But the 1B or Royal is a little harder to find because it's not so much that they didn't make as many. Well, they probably didn't make as many. They probably didn't sell as many. They didn't fill as many orders for the number 2 size. But survival rate of any tin lantern from the 1890s is going to be a little challenged. It's going to not be as much as they were produced because of so much time and so many things that has happened. And at one time, these were not valuable. They weren't valued at all. They were rather inexpensive, and they were thrown away after certain jobs if they got damaged or whatever. So, yeah, amazing condition, this thing. And if you look at it very closely, you see really any rust at all? No, this is just dirt and oxidation. Look at the air tubes. You got some nice patina going on there. and it's just, it shows really proper age and wear and tear, and yeah, it's leaning a little bit this way. I want to push it back this way just a little bit, but I've already tried and I don't want to break the solder. But it's a pretty cool piece. It's complete, has its fuel cap, and you know, it's side lift, and nothing's damaged on this lantern really, except for the square tubes are a little out of adjustment. But I mean, wow. The last patent date is 1893. It's just about when the 1B came out, I think. Maybe just a little earlier. But the earlier versions do have a bottom stamp, and this is not marked for SGNL at all. And which is fine, because it mostly sits on a shelf or on a flat surface anyways, and you're not going to see it. But that's always fun to have, is that underneath fountain stamp, though. It's a little added touch of fun, but not necessary. Nope, it's just an extra little bonus. However, this thing is really kind of neat, and collector had it up for sale, and I showed interest, and we talked about it and came to a price that was fair for both of us. And he sent it over, and I'm pretty happy to have it. It's quite a special old tubular lantern, and I don't have many SGNLs. Well, I've had several, but I've sold most of them. Why is that, Rob? Why do you sell your SGNLs? I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe because I feel they're too similar to Dietz, and if I have a Dietz version, maybe I'll just sell the SGNL. Now, for those newer subscribers and lantern collectors, you might not know what SGNL stands for. That means Steam Gauge and Lantern Company. And, well, I know what company name is cooler than Steam Gauge and Lantern Company? I mean, it's very 19th century. It is. And did they really make steam gauges? Apparently so. I've finally found some examples on WorthPoint through another mutual friend of mine, Michael Large. He found some, because I was under the impression that they never really did. Never saw any. Same with Madison Kirkman. We had this conversation a couple weeks ago, and we were like, well, you know, funny thing, we've never seen a steam gauge by a Steam Gauge Lantern Company. And so we thought, oh, geez, you're right. I never thought of it, but yeah, true. And I've been looking for steam gauges just to see if there was any that were marked SGNL. Well, Michael found some on WorthPoint, so there you go. And Madison is into steam gauges. He's into antique railroading, 19th century railroading and all that. So pretty cool stuff. But anyway, SGNL was founded in 1880, 81, give or take, and one of the earlier presidents of SGNL was Charles Trafton Ham. That's right, C.T. Ham. That's exactly who it was. He was one of the presidents of SGNL for a bit, and then in 1886 or 7, he left the company and started his own company, which was C.T. Ham. And he was in Rochester, though, and SGNL was in Rochester originally, and then they had a fire at their factory, I believe in 87 or 80, right around there. It was late. It was late 80s, and then they moved from there to Syracuse, and they built a factory in Syracuse, New York, and then they continued operations there for a while until Dietz had a major fire in 1897, and Dietz pretty much moved their operations into the Syracuse, New York plant where SGNL was. And then since at that time they had about 30, maybe even 50% holdings with SGNL, so they eventually dissolved SGNL in 1898 and just continued R.E. Dietz. But this lantern dates to right around 1895 or 6, I would say. But the single wire guard design was, it lasted a while. And I think it finally went away right around 1897 with the cross wire guards were becoming more popular and whatnot. But this is definitely a handsome design. Now, did Dietz make a Royal? Of course he did. This one here is about approximately the same era. And we've already seen this one on the channel. I've shown it, but it's next to side by side. look at that. The Dietz is a little shorter. And that's just because of the draft tube. So the draft tube right here is longer on the SGNL. It is. Why? I don't know. It's just a design difference. And that's cool. And that's what they did. They had subtle differences to distinguish one from the other. And because SGNL was still kind of an independent company, but Dietz had interests with them. And they were able to share each other's patents and whatever. And that's why they didn't get in trouble with Dietz, is because they were, you know, siblings more or less. But yeah, taller draft tube. It's pretty much the same fount, skirt, and everything. Same manifold with the perforations. See that? Yeah, pretty cool. But anyways, it's a beautiful piece. All original. I've not done a single thing to it except for swapping out the globe and putting some kerosene in it and lighting it. I'll tell you, friends, the inside of this fount is really, really clean. It's kind of surprisingly clean. It's very shiny. Now, some people do get a little carried away, in my personal opinion, with preservation. When you find something this nice, because this is not rust, it's just dark aged tin. It's a little on the dirty side because it was stored in a dry, kind of dirty place at one point. And this was found in upstate New York, I believe. But yeah, it's a neat piece. But when you find something this nice and this aged, you know, some people's first impulse is to cover it in oil, like either cleanse oil, get the dirt off and make it a little shiny and preserve it, if you will, or boiled linseed oil or other popular methods of quote unquote preservation. Well, here's my challenge to you, and you can think about this. No hate, nothing. But this is just my challenge to you guys, is that if you find something like this in this condition, do yourself a favor. Leave it alone. You know why? Because it's not going to rust as soon as you touch it. As soon as you get possession of it, it's not going to self-destruct. It's come a long, long way without any rust, without any real oxidation, except for just darkening of the tin. Now, some of us have an aesthetic that we like. Some of us like a slightly glossy, wet look, and we inside we feel that it's our duty to preserve something from further decay, and I understand that. I was there one time, but think about it. This thing last was used by people from a completely different era, and it was kept in a very dry, dark place and preserved by time, free of rust and corrosion. So I don't know. I would say that if you got something like this in this condition, just enjoy it. No need to restore something that doesn't necessarily need it. Now, I know there's a lot of different methods people have taken a shine to, whether bathing them in lye or the electrolysis tank and everything. There's a lot of kind of popular trends right now in the hobby. And sorry, it's street sweeping day. Anyways, I thought I'd do a video in the apartment to be free of all the noise, but apparently that's not happening. But imagine if I was in the garage, it would be a lot more noisier there, for sure, guaranteed. But anyways, with this stuff, you kind of want to do a soft approach. And sometimes things really don't need anything. If it doesn't really have any rust, it's just kind of dark, aged stuff, leave it. You're going to keep it in the house anyways, if it's special, so just leave it. That's my challenge. And I'm glad I have this. And the collector, John D. Simone, I believe his name is. Yeah, John. He, sweet guy, really great conversations. He was going to wipe this down with cleanse oil, but I asked him not to, and he respected my wishes, and I made the purchase over several weeks or about a month's time. I gave him some money here and there and paid it off. And it was a very fair price for what it is. And it's complete, and it does operate. I don't have any fuel in it right now, or else I would light it, but we'll light it next video. and you'll get to see it burning maybe with the other royal. So I'll do a royal treatment. But anyhow, this is really kind of how I want to find my lanterns from now on. I know at one time I used to do, WD-40 scrubs and cleans and stuff, and I still do occasionally, depending if the lantern needs it or not. Now, some things I feel don't need it. This thing will receive absolutely no attention except for maybe trying to straighten it a little bit. But even then, if it doesn't want to straighten, I don't want to, fracture the solder, 125, 30-year-old solder, then I'll just leave it as is, because it stands as a symbol of a bygone era and a tool. It's definitely once used, because there are some blemishes. There's a little bit of a dent on the top tube here. It leans to one side. There's a little dent down here. But everything's intact, and it holds oil, and it functions just fine. And it still has a very old wick in it. So that's kind of fun to use a wick that it has had for 100 years at least. So it is special. It is special. But now it has a companion. It's got a friend. It's got a, these two both are about the same era. Mid to late 1890s. Well, I'd say mid 1890s, easily. And you can see the subtle differences in Dietz, SGNL. That's right. And of course, Dietz have ultimately won. They dissolved SGNL because they needed the space for manufacturing because of their fire in New York at the main plant. And that was it. That was the end of SGNL. So if you find anything SGNL, it's pre-1898, technically. Now, my crystal that I used to have, the very first crystal that I had that was SGNL, had a last patent date stamped that was 98. So that would be a very late run SGNL crystal. Now, people were like, well, I thought they stopped making them. Well, no, they were still making SGNL lanterns into 98. And Dietz was using a lot of their leftover parts and just making them and selling them, because it didn't matter if it said SGNL or Dietz, because they were the same company by that point. So they used up all the tools, all the dies and everything that they still had, and just finished the orders and everything. So 98 would definitely be the very last cutoff. And I think even into 99 that you would still see some SGNL stamped lanterns. Some, would have SGNL founts and Dietz globes, and they were just getting everything used up, left over from the SGNL factory. But yeah, fun stuff. Old tubulars, I tell you. Something about watching these old flames, late at night, and you just kind of sit there and your mind starts to drift. It's funny because sometimes we get rose-tinted glasses and we think about the past and we get kind of nostalgic, or we romanticize about it. We do. The honest truth is while there was interesting things about the past and we are fascinated by the past, it wasn't all that great. Nutrition was very primitive, and sanitation was very non-existent. You were considered healthy if you had bugs living on you, and bathing was kind of frowned upon on a regular basis. So yeah, there was definitely things about that era. Disease definitely was a lot more common. People didn't live nearly as long as they do now because of the lack of nutrition and medicines. Childbirth was kind of a 50-50 chance of survival with whether the mother or the child. So when a mother was with child, it was a big deal. It was very special, especially if both survived the event. And so yeah, it was challenging times, very challenging times. People worked from sun up to sundown, and you think, gee whiz, what did people do for fun? Oh, they had fun. Of course they had fun. They had socials, and they had, they played games and sang songs. And I would say one of the draws or attractions to that era would be the sense of community and the willingness to put one's personal comforts aside for another, because there definitely seemed to be a camaraderie amongst people in villages and towns of that era in the Old West and the frontier that would put other people, other families ahead of their own needs sometimes. That was a culture That was an old world culture that they brought as immigrants to the West, to the frontier. And watching out for each other definitely was part of that. Now, does that still happen today? Of course it does. There are good people still today, even though we don't see them online. Doesn't mean they don't exist. I think a lot of my subscribers here are good people, and I'm happy to be offering some information about these old oil burning tubular lanterns to you guys, and I'm grateful for that. So enjoy the past, dive into it, learn about it, become familiar with it. But to say there and wish we could live back then, I don't think that's really fair. I know some days I think, I would probably be better suited in the 1940s or 50s, but I don't want polio. And, even though that would probably not happen, it would definitely be more of an option, and the chances would be higher. And, there's a war, World War II, which I have a deep, deep reverence and respect for those who did serve. I've known many veterans, and I've thought about them many times since they've passed. But yeah, I don't know if I'd be that guy. I like to think that I would be, but I didn't live then. I was born much later. But I love history, and I am very fascinated by it, and I respect it greatly. So yeah, and these things, they're fun to enjoy and collect, and sometimes just leave them as they are, because they do tell a great story. Well, friends, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks again for tuning in once more. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Same time, same station. Be sure to share it with your friends, like and subscribe, darn it. It's good for you. Take it easy, friends. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.